I stayed in a small village after dark. Now I don't get to leave. By Reddit user NinjaGal15. I was the volunteer in my news team to go investigate Stockholm, Wisconsin. They've had a stable population for decades, and not all that much was known about the townsfolk. 79 individuals lived there, and they liked to keep to themselves. They acted oddly around tourists and had rules that visitors were not allowed after sunset. I interviewed a few townsfolk. They all seemed to enjoy living in a small village. The only time people seemed to get upset is when I asked them if they would ever consider moving. "Absolutely not," Dennis said through the gritted teeth. "We love it here," Amanda replied, putting her hand over her child's mouth. "It's a terrific place to live and visit," Gertrude said, rocking in her porch chair. "But remember, you have to be outside the limit by sunset. Don't forget that." All in all, the people seemed a little odd but happy. They all stayed outside to wave me as I drove away from the little town. Or so they thought. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something fishy was going on here. I parked outside the village, sneaking back inside until dark. An alarm rang as soon as the sun set. The townsfolk rushed out of their houses, worrying and panicking on every face. "I thought we did a sweep," an officer yelled. "There shouldn't be anybody inside the village besides us." "Maybe it was that damn journalist," Gertrude said, spitting. "I knew he was trouble." Wow, rude. She had seemed so sweet before. Peeking beside a house, I saw something scary in the residents' faces. Terror. "We need to find whoever's still here, any and all of them," the officer said, bringing his gun out of his holster. "Find the 3 oldest among us, just in case." The townsfolk nodded and began to spread out, combing the area. I snagged a few pictures, noticing 3 elderly people. 2 men and a woman come stand in a gazebo near the center of town. Too weird. I decided to leave and sneak back to my car. I crept slowly, avoiding the people searching for me, until my car was within my sight. I walked towards it, only to find myself back inside Stockholm. What? I thought to myself. I spent hours trying to get out, but no matter what angle I left from, I always ended up back in town. Exhausted and frightened, I got the attention of Dennis, fabricating some story about my car breaking down and having to return for help. The sheriff punched me right in the face. I fell backwards, sprawling onto the dirt below. "Why did you come back here?" he yelled, kicking me in the gut. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I tried to respond, but could only cough and wince in pain. I laid on the ground, moaning. When I finally stood back up, I noticed the townsfolk all had their backs turned, looking at the Mississippi River. Water. I was cut off by a wet splash. A humongous green eel appeared to rise out of the water, appearing taller than any building I'd ever seen. Its eyes were dark but piercing, like looking at the sun behind a pair of sunglasses. I started to panic, but the others just told me to be quiet. The creature let out a roar. My head felt like it would explode. I felt vessels burst in my eyes and ears. Blood began dripping out of my nose. I was about to scream when I noticed the sheriff slowly walking over to one of the elderly people they had gathered before. The rest of the villagers looked like they were in pain also, even the sheriff. The old woman he walked up to whimpered. "Please," she muttered pathetically. Without another word, the sheriff brought his gun to her head and her face exploded, scattering bits of brain and blood all over the dirt. Now I'll admit I screamed. The older woman fell to the ground, twitching feebly. The massive eel stopped roaring all at once. It looked down, locking eyes with the sheriff. "Accept this offer, Lord," the sheriff said in a deadpan voice, and leave us be. The eel began to slink back into the lake. I have no idea how it managed to hide itself completely. There was no way the lake could hold all of its body. Before it sank underwater, I looked at it and we made eye contact. All at once I saw visions, Native Americans sacrificing their tribesmen, settlers bleeding from their heads before they popped like grapes. Even a large creature bursting out of a glacier and into the cold waters below. I snapped back to reality. Gertrude was helping me stand back up, giving me a sad frown. "We asked you to leave," she croaked. "Why couldn't you just leave?" Why answer? What answer would be good enough? I stared at the dirt instead, ignoring the blood puddling up around the older woman's corpse. The sheriff gave me a dark look before sighing. "He's not the first, and he won't be the last." He walked in front of me. I flinched back, afraid to be hit again, but he raised his hands as if in surrender. "The boundary in town cannot have more than 79 people in it after dark," he explained. "We close highways J and 35 every night, specifically to prevent this." "Why?" I croaked. "What is that thing?" "It's had many names, none of which we understand. Urban legends call it Peppy because of the lake." The sheriff looked around, frowning at the crying elderly man standing near the corpse. I noticed a wedding ring on his finger and felt a deep sorrow in my throat. "If this town has too many people, it wipes all of us out," he gestured to the dark water. "Once someone stays here after dark, they can't leave, and we have to adjust the population accordingly." "Why didn't you kill me?" I didn't want to die, but it seemed odd they picked on one of their own. He let out a sad smile. "We voted decades ago to choose the oldest among us. If one of them dies of natural causes, we need to bring another person inside the village before the sun sets the next day, or the creature will be back." With that, he patted me on the shoulder. "Welcome to Stockholm, kid." He frowned again. "I'm sorry you're here, but you're here for good now." So that's it. They let me have an empty house, although I wish it was farther away from the lake. I've been here about a month now, and it's not as bad as I thought. The residents warmed up to me. I don't think they blame me for what happened, which would be a relief if I didn't blame myself. I wake up screaming at night sometimes, thinking about that eel's dark eyes, the way the elderly woman shuddered as she fell to the dirt, the way I teleport back into the center of the village if I try to leave. If you come across a small village named Stockholm in Wisconsin, don't stay after dark. You might not get the chance to leave. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. I'd like to thank the author for letting me narrate this. I thought it was a nice little quick story. Let me know down in the comments what you thought. I have some other stories lined up and ready to be narrated. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.